Inflation concentrated in January. Transportation up 8%. Shelter again up about 4.5%. Food prices up 2.5%. And egg prices accounting for 2/3 of the monthly increase in the food at home component. Now the expectations for the Fed rate cut have been pushed back to October.
Yeah, words of Donald Trump notwithstanding. We'll get into that with our next guest. Thank you very much. Mike Lee joins me now. Mike, a huge rise in the CPI. Is this the result of the last gasp of Bidenomics spending?
Well, look, I think it has more to do with the intricacies of how the CPI is calculated. So shelter made up a huge portion of this rise. And I just think for people at home watching this, what you want to look at is the month over month core. We came in at 0.4. If you annualize that out, that's about a 5% annualized rate. You want to see that at a 0.1 or a 0.2 if we want rates to get low again. But look, the shelter component has a 12-month lag, and the price of shelter declined dramatically over the last 12 months. So that is going to come down a bunch. Transportation, I don't know how it could be up 8% in a single month. But the intricacies of how they calculate this can throw people into a tizzy. There is absolutely nothing that troubles me about this number. I think even if we got a number that was half the amount, Jerome Powell's going to play games with cutting interest rates. I think interest rate cuts are something that we can talk about in the back half of this year. But when and how many, I think, is very much up in the air at the moment.
And by the way, the president did put out a Truth Social posting this morning. He said interest rates should be lowered, something which would go hand in hand with upcoming tariffs. Let's rock and roll, America. Given this inflation report, I would take that message off the table, wouldn't you?
Well, look, I don't think we were going to get anything until these numbers got substantially better. And so I don't know that we're going to get rate cuts in the first 6 months of the year. I think, like I said, if this number was much better per se, I don't know that we'd be looking at rate cuts in the first half of this year.
On the other hand, pushing back a little bit on what you said about Bidenomics, I do think that some of this has to do with that huge amount of spending that happened in the last part of last year with the Biden administration before they left office, trying to put as much cash out in the economy as they possibly could because they knew the DOGE team was going to come in and try to sweep some of that up. This gives the DOGE team much more energy and perhaps much more support in cutting back on government expenses, doesn't it?
Look, what's going on with DOGE is nothing short of remarkable. The Democrats say we didn't vote for this, and I think they're right because nobody knew this was an option. If I knew having Elon and his team come in and slash $1 trillion or more of federal spending through waste, fraud, and abuse, like I wouldn't have voted for it once. I would have voted for it 10 times, right? Like everybody wants this. Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's essential. Look, over 20 cents of every dollar that comes into the Treasury from tax revenue goes to service debt, and before you know it, that's going to be 25, 30, 35 cents. Like, so, look, nothing better has happened from the government in my lifetime than what we're seeing right now with DOGE.
We got to leave it at that. Thank you so much for that perspective. Now this, an historic presentation.